Monday, the nation will celebrate the holiday known as Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King Jr. was, in fact and in life, a radical of the best kind, someone committed to social justice and to economic justice, and someone fully aware of the interconnectedness between those two goals. Now, as Dr. King has metamorphosed over the decades from a dissident leader of the most powerful country on earth to a figure that is celebrated with a federal holiday and the namings of schools, bridges, and highways after him, something unfortunately has been lost, and that is the truly radical nature of the great spirit that was Dr. King. Well, we're going to try to do a little something about that now. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about what Dr. King had in mind when he was killed, and secondly, we'll use Dr. King's own words to illustrate the timelessness of his radicalism. Let's start with what Dr. King was doing at the time of his death. Dr. King was assassinated as he was planning the Poor People's Campaign, a united front for economic justice and for the elimination of poverty. Here's what the campaign was calling for. He was planning it at the time of his death, as I say, and here's what the campaign did in fact call for: an economic Bill of Rights. That was an important aspect of the Poor People's Campaign. It included a $13 billion annual appropriation for the war on poverty. Now, to put that in contemporary dollars, that would come to about $213 billion a year, or well over $2 trillion over a 10-year period. Now, that may sound like an astronomical sum, but remember that the government was just able to pass a tax cut for wealthy people primarily, that costs $1.5 trillion over a 10-year period. So perhaps not so astronomical after all, and far more needed. He also wanted to see us pass through Congress a full employment bill and guaranteed employment, guaranteed income legislation, a guaranteed annual wage, what some people are calling now a universal basic income. So he wanted every household in America to collect enough money to be able to escape poverty. He wanted every person who was willing and able to work to have a job, and he wanted the government to guarantee those things. And he also believed in and was pushing through the Poor People's Campaign the construction of 500,000 low-cost housing units every year until slums were eliminated altogether. These are ideas that are as relevant today as they were then. Dr. King, by the way, also said the profit motive, when it is the sole basis of an economic system, encourages a cutthroat competition and selfish ambition that encourages men to be I-centered rather than thou-centered. I hope that stands. I believe it does stand through the decades as a rebuke not only to Republican-style greed, but to the democratic centrist ideology of neoliberalism that thinks the market can fix everything. It cannot. And he said, and this is well worth remembering today, Congress appropriates military funds with alacrity and generosity. It appropriates poverty funds with miserliness and grudging reluctance. The government is emotionally committed to the war. It is emotionally hostile to the needs of the poor. That is as true today as it was in Dr. King's time. This madness of a $700 billion extra giveaway to the military was supported and voted for by most of your Democratic heroes and mine in Congress, as well as the people we oppose. That is shameful and unfortunate that we can find $750 billion for a military military that is already bloated in its budget and misguided in its goals, and we cannot find it in our hearts and souls to help the poor. That is absurd. It is insane. It is not the country that Dr. King wanted. As we celebrate this holiday, it is time to also celebrate his radical values.